A few weeks back, I received an interesting comment. It read, "Why did British tender locomotives not have bogies on the tenders?" That question has a short answer with a long explanation. And in order to keep up your attention, I shall conveniently give those to you in reverse order. First things first, what is a bogie? A bogie, also known as a truck, is an articulated frame which contains the wheels on either a carriage or a locomotive. Long items of rolling stock or longer locomotives with rigid frames are easier to construct as there are fewer moving parts, but these in turn cannot handle sharper curves. When railways were seeing worldwide adoption in the early 1800s, very few locomotives or rolling stock had bogies. For instance, in Europe your average intercity passenger coach was 36 feet long, or just shy of 11 metres, and it had 3 axles on a rigid frame. But when bogies were adopted as the standard for long-distance passenger vehicles, coaches could utilise the articulated nature of those bogies to reach 70 foot long, or just over 21 metres. This means a smoother ride as the carriage can now balance on 2 articulated pairs of axles. The extra weight of the carriage is often offset by the extra axles upon which the carriage rides. And for a railway company, the greatest benefit was the increase in capacity. Longer vehicle means a larger volume of load. For tenders, the same principle applies. If the tender is longer, it can hold more fuel for the journey ahead. If the tender then also runs on bogies, the overall weight is better distributed and it is more flexible. For locomotives built in America, the bogie tender was the standard, and it's only logical. Class 1 railroads had immense distances between their major stopping points, so refueling became more of an issue as the trains ran along. And whilst you can theoretically replenish water on the go through a trough situated between the rails and a water scoop on the tender, you can't do the same with coal. As a result, American locomotives more often than not had absolutely huge tenders, but the ones to take the cake, as it were the Pennsylvania Railroad's coast-to-coast tenders. 11 types of these tenders were built, the largest of which running on 2 4-axle bogies. Just the smallest type alone was 51 foot long, and all 11 types utilised mechanical stokers to deposit the up to 42 tons worth of coal into the firebox. It is now that we turn our attention back to Britain, where only a few railway companies ran their locomotives with bogie tenders. The most notable were the London and South Western Railway and later the Southern Railway, the Caledonian Railway, the Little Rumney Hythe and Dumchurch Railway, and the Midland Railway. These all ran bogie tenders for separate reasons. The LSWR's main line never had any water troughs, so had to make sure their locos didn't run dry, as it were. The CR was a very hilly system, even more so than the LSWR, and it equally had no water troughs. So despite the longest possible non-stop journey on the CR being the 256 kilometres between Carlisle and Aberdeen, a shorter journey than the 309 kilometres between London and Plymouth, the two ends of the LSWR system, the CR locos had to work a lot harder and do the trip non-stop. The Rumney Hythe and Dumchurch Railway is only 21 kilometres long, but since the railway's opening, their locos were tasked with multiple round trips a day. In fact, the average size of the tender in use by the RDHR has only grown over time. And finally, the Midland Railway was perhaps Britain's most national railway. They claimed you could catch a train at Bournemouth and get all the way up to Carlisle without leaving Midland Railway metals. For this reason, their long-distance express locos had bogie tender, so refuelling or a loco change could be delayed to the furthest station possible. Also, come 1899, the MR had been one of 3 English companies to receive an order of Baldwin-built 260 goods engines. When these engines were withdrawn between 1906 and 1914,
unlike what some doofus on YouTube claimed,
their bogie tenders, again very much following American practice, were coupled to other Midland Railway locomotives. The trend with bogie tenders in the UK is that they seem to disappear somewhere around the 1930s, or at least cease to be built. There were many factors which contributed to them falling out of use, but specifically in the cases of the CR, MR and LSWR, there were 3 main points. When the MR and CR were amalgamated into the London, Midland and Scottish Railway, that railway set about building more water troughs, especially in the Scottish region. The installation of more water troughs and the construction of higher capacity tenders with just 3 axles certainly contributed, not to mention the LSWR and MR main lines receiving very thermally efficient locomotives in the form of Oliver Bulleid's Pacifics, and basically all of William Stanier's locomotives. So far I've also not mentioned something pretty major which hampers bogie tenders from being sufficiently adopted on the Victorian railway system. The quite literal economy of scale. It costs quite a lot of money to replace a smaller turntable with one which can accommodate the increased combined length of a locomotive and bogie tender. So, to answer the initial question prompting this video, why did British tender locomotives not have bogies on the tenders? They mostly didn't need them.